All right, everybody, just getting situated. You'll see the class notes if you're on Zoom. You see the class notes in the chat. If you are on YouTube, look in the chat. There are links to class notes that you can download. There is also a link to the Zoom room. And I hope that everyone will come over and it's watching it live. Join me in the Zoom room. So it's March 22nd, 7 p.m. And so after the class on Zoom, the YouTube feed, we'll cut it off and then we'll stick around till 8:15 and we can talk about the concept and how we're applying it to our lives, and maybe you can get on and share some wisdom as well. So just give me one quick second and we'll get the class started. All right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to this week's Increase class. I'm Blake Anderson, and it is March 22nd, 2023. I'm honored to be here with you, and I'm honored that you would take the time to watch this, whether you've joined us live on YouTube or Zoom, or whether you're watching the recording on YouTube. God bless you. Thanks for joining us. We are picking up where we left off. So we just started last week a 4-week series on the Biblical Leadership Blueprint. The Biblical Leadership Blueprint, and tonight we're going to be on step number 2. So before we get started, let me say just a quick prayer so we can open our hearts, open our minds, and direct our attention to what God might have for us tonight as He is showing us how to increase in this class. Father, we just give you thanks and praise for yet another week together. We open our hearts, we open our minds, that you might impart wisdom, that we might increase. We pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, here in Increase, just a reminder, we take spiritual concepts and we learn to apply them naturally so that we can get natural results. Increase is a spiritual concept, and there are principles to increase that start spiritually, which means they have an essence that is spiritual, not natural, but we can apply them in any area of our life and begin to see results and see increase in our life. And leadership, so much of leadership is a spiritual concept to begin with. But tonight we're going to take that spiritual concept of leadership and we're going to start to apply it. And I can guarantee you that if you'll start to apply these concepts, you will see instant results. You'll see the people around you respond to you differently. And then you'll begin to see the world respond to you differently, and results will start looking different in your life. So the Biblical Leadership Blueprint, as I said last week, this was taught to me by a mentor of mine named Tom Capps. Tom's an author and really taught me a lot. And he said he found the verse in the Bible that spoke exactly to leadership, and he believed was the best verse on leadership. And as he taught it to me and I began to apply it, I realized what he found. And it was hidden in Isaiah chapter 57. So Isaiah chapter 57, verse 14 says, "And it will be said, build up, prepare the road, remove the obstacles out of the way of my people." So each one of those phrases is a specific task or responsibility of a leader. And if a leader will embrace those responsibilities and tasks, then they will see increase, and they will lead their followers into success. So last week, we went through step number 1, which was build up your people, build up your team. And so I'm going to do a little review from last week, but if you haven't seen step number 1, go back and watch it. It's on YouTube. The YouTube channel is youtube.com/learn-to-increase, and it is from March 15th. And I hope that you brought your pens and your paper, or that you'll come back and watch this video when you can. There are notes to take tonight. This is some secret sauce and some serious business. And if you will take these notes, you can start to apply these everywhere that you might have a leadership responsibility, and you'll start to see increase. So let's jump into our review, and you'll understand why this review had to be happening tonight. It's going to lead us right into step number 2, which is build up the process. Next week, we'll talk about the responsibility a leader has to prepare the road. And then our 4th week, we'll look into the final responsibility that the leader has, which is to remove the obstacles out of the way of my people. So when we talk about building up people, it's understanding leadership. And what we've talked about before is knowing that leadership is essential to increase. If you're going to do anything big in life, it will come with a team. And leadership, very simply defined, is influence. As John C. Maxwell puts it in his classic book, The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, the true measure of leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. So you got to ask yourself, will people follow you? You can force people to do things, but you can't force them to trust you. You can't force them to follow you. Their willingness to really do so will be whether you have influence with them or not. Maxwell also says, if you don't have influence, you will never be able to lead people. And isn't that so true? And I think we've all experienced it, especially when we've had poor leaders who didn't lead us well, people who were in a positional leadership role above us, but that we did not trust and we wouldn't give them influence over us. Important thing to understand when we're talking about building up our people and leading people is in the people business, fast is slow and slow is fast. Let me say it again. Fast is slow, slow is fast. If you try to skip steps and rush people, you'll have a hard time getting them to follow you long-term or commit to your plan. Oftentimes, great plans never go anywhere because the leader hasn't built up the team, built up his or her influence, built up their trust as a unit to be able to do anything great. And the plan flounders, okay? But if you'll take the time to build up your team, and as we'll talk about tonight, to build up your process, it will feel like it's taking much longer than you planned, but you will actually be able to get to your destination much faster. So one thing you must embrace, oftentimes we think about leadership and we're so excited that finally we're given recognition. And people recognize that I have something to offer, but you have to understand when you're a leader that your people, the people you're leading, they are your most valuable asset. They are your treasure. They are your prize, and you have to treat them like that. You've got to treat them like the most valuable asset you have, because it will, without them, your project will go nowhere. So as a leader, your team's performance and their success is your responsibility. You have to own that responsibility that if anyone on your team, if they are going to do well, it is up to you to build them up. It's up to you to empower them. And if they do poorly, that is on you as a leader. So their performance and their success is your responsibility. And also understand that your success and your performance is going to rely on their ability to contribute. So the people on your team are your greatest asset. Now, as we're going forward, there might be some people watching who think, well, I'm not in a leadership position. I don't have anybody that reports to me. I don't have employees. Go back and watch another previous class where we talk about lead where you are. And you need to understand and embrace the fact that everyone is a leader. If there's someone in your life that trusts you, that you have influence over, then you are a leader to them. And you can lead anywhere you are. You can lead down, you can lead up, you can lead side to side. Anytime we're working as teams, there is a leader present, even if they don't have a title or a name badge. You can be a leader anywhere you are. And if you'll embrace and apply these principles we're talking about in this class, you'll begin to see increase brought to your life, increase in likely promotion, increase in job title, and increase in influence as a leader. So step one, build up your people. That's a 3-step process, okay? That's a 3-step process. And remember, step number 1 is you have to empathize with those around you. Remember, fast is slow, slow is fast. Sometimes it feels slow, but the first thing you have to do is you've got to get on the level of the people that you're attempting to lead. You've got to connect with them. Okay. Remember, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So first we build trust, we empathize, we get on their level, we make that connection with where they're at in that moment, right? Doesn't necessarily mean that you lower your standards, but you can get down on their level, see eye to eye and recognize them. Okay. The second thing you do when you're building people up is you have to encourage them. So first you empathize. They've got to trust you. Then the door to their heart opens and you're able to encourage them because you need to build them up. You need them to be confident, empowered, and being able to do more. And so you'll need to encourage them because whether they succeed or not will influence on whether you succeed. Okay, so if your success relies on them, then we need to encourage them to get the most out of them. And so we'll take the time, we humble ourselves and realize they're our most valuable asset. So our interactions, when we're leading other people, is not about us as a leader. Our interactions with the folks that we're leading is about them and whether they're encouraged and whether they're able to commit to the team and accomplish what the team's after. And so you encourage people by affirming their gifts, affirming their values, affirming their skill sets, seeing that you recognize them and you know what they bring to the table. You recognize their importance and their contribution, maybe historical contribution, and them knowing that you understand they are such an important part of your team, and your team's success relies on their commitment and their ability to offer their gift, and you want to empower them with confidence. See, your team is not going to be able to do anything of great magnitude if they're unsure of what they're doing. And so their ability to perform has to do with their confidence, and their confidence is your responsibility as a leader. So take the time to make sure that everybody on your team is confident and understands what's expected of them, and they feel empowered to move forward and offer from their gifts, okay? So we empathize, we encourage, and you also have to equip. So it is the leader's responsibility to equip the team. And so you equip them you might teach them a new skill, you might get them loaded into a software or a program, but they need to feel equipped and have what they need, right? And it's going to take time, but you need to ensure that they're comfortable in what's being expected of them, they're comfortable with the process, and that they understand where they fit in the process. So we equip them. Sometimes you'll have to confront and correct wrong behavior in order to equip them, right? So it's your responsibility if someone is not living up to their expectation, that you're confronting things that aren't going well, and you're correcting the behavior that's not offering what you need it to, right? But when you go to correct or confront, you got to do it in the order we said. First, you empathize, then you encourage, then you confront and correct. Because if you go the fast route and you jump straight into correction, they're likely going to close the door of their heart. They're going to shut down. They're going to get defensive. And now they no longer trust you, which means you don't have influence. And if you don't have influence with someone, you're not their leader. Okay? So we empathize, we encourage, we equip. That's how we build up our team. Watch last week's class to get a deep dive into that. Now, after you've built up your team, your second responsibility as a leader, step number 2, is you got to build up the process. The leader's job is to create a process and to teach the process for their team to use. Okay? You shouldn't understand this. Like, you should not trust this responsibility of creating a process solely to someone who's not responsible for the outcome. Okay. So remember, as a leader, you're responsible for the outcome of your project, of the task, of your business, whatever you're doing. Right. And since you're solely responsible, you should not just assume that someone on your team is going to create the process needed to succeed. That's your responsibility as a leader. Even if you're not a great process builder, you're still responsible. And I'm going to give you that process tonight. It is a step-by-step blueprint that will work. Okay. So it's your job to create a process that helps them succeed. It's your job to teach it to them. Right. Remember, it's not fair to be held accountable to something that was never given to you in the first place. And oftentimes, if you've entered into a role that you were let go of, or maybe a position that you quit from, chances are what went south was you were being held accountable to a standard you didn't know about. You were being held accountable for a process that didn't exist, or maybe one that was never communicated to you. So when you step into the leadership position, you want to be a strong leader that equips their team to succeed, and you equip them with the process that works. Let me tell you a story of recent history in our family of how this works on a day-to-day basis and the importance of having a process. So my second child is 10, okay, Eden Rose. And she is an awesome person, and she's full expression, but she's not the neatest or the tidiest. And it would look, if you were to follow her around the house, that maybe she was lazy, and she was okay with things being out of order. And there was a lot of frustration with us about her keeping her room in order, her picking up after herself. Seemed like she was always ditching her responsibilities. And we decided to put together a system in which our kids would get paid to do their chores, and they would learn to handle money. And so we created this new process, and on their chore chart, they were defined exactly what was expected of them. So we often wanted them to clean up after themselves. We wanted them to help with the chores of the house. But we had mediocre success ever getting them to do it with us, and never were they willing to do it on their own. But the moment we put this chore chart in place, that gave a process for my daughter where she knew exactly what was expected of her. She knew when she had to do it by, and she understood what she was going to get paid for it. It's amazing. She has jumped right in. She wasn't lazy at all, and she wasn't ineffective. At 10 years old, she actually is strong and very intelligent and able to do so much more than we've ever seen from her and ever expected of her. And the thing is, it was on us as the parents, as the leaders. We had never given her a process to use. The moment we gave her a process, she's a completely transformed person. See, I was expecting her to create something that was really my responsibility. So the moment I created that process, she was given a structure and a framework that she's able to move forward on. And it's really amazing. She's doing her chores ahead of time. She's excited about how she's contributing and the money she's making, right? But it's no different whether with my daughter keeping her room clean or helping clean her bathroom than it is if you're leading people at work or maybe volunteering at church. Wherever you're a leadership position, your followers around you are really looking to you for a process. But many leaders don't take the time to create a process. They just say, just help. And people don't even know where to start. And maybe you as a leader don't know where to start to put them in place. I had an employee many years ago that we hired someone to help this person, and found out that the person that we hired was standing around watching this person work all day. And it drove me crazy. I was like, what is going on here? This person is just standing there watching him work. Well, the reality was he didn't give his helper a process to help him. And so without a process, his helper had nothing to do but watch. And me as a leader, I didn't give my employee a process for him to lead a team. So it was really on me that neither of them succeeded. So let's jump in. What does this process really look like? Well, get your pen, get your paper out. This is a 7-step process for success. Okay. This will, when I lay it out, it likely will not seem like the Da Vinci Code or anything overly novel. You've probably been doing this organically, but maybe not with intentionality. But if you can add intentionality to this 7-step process, anything that you're doing, if you apply the 7-step process, you'll create a process that works. You'll create a process that empowers people to join you. You'll create a process where your team can grow and where people can be productive and offer their gifts. We've used this process to create new businesses. We've used this process to bring our teams together more. We use this process to build houses and do housing developments. This process works. It works for projects. It works for businesses that are just trying to work out workflow for ongoing work. So what is this process that you can make? How do I build up a team so that they can succeed? Well, I'm going to save you some time. If you'll just write this down, we'll explain it. 7 steps. And they build on each other like bricks in a foundation. They must be done on this order, but every step from the beginning empowers the next steps above it. And any step that skips erodes the structural integrity of the other steps. So they must be done. And the great thing about these steps is if any point in time you reach an impasse where something unforeseen happens or a change needs to be made, you can just start at the beginning and work your way back through. These are your fail-safe when you're creating a project and you want to see it through to the end. So step number one, when you're creating the process for your team to succeed, is you define success. Before we start anywhere, we must know where we're going. The most frustrating thing that a leader can do is to find out that you've been running enthusiastically in the wrong direction. I just quoted Keith Cunningham, by the way, from his book, The Road Less Stupid. We don't want to find out that we've been running in the wrong direction. But if we don't define success, then we could find out one day that we have been doing a whole lot of work and effort going in the wrong direction. So it's your job as a leader to define success. Okay. What is that goal that we're trying to accomplish? How will we know that we've gotten there? When you've defined success, then you want to clarify the scope. You want to clarify every little detail that makes up that success. So if my goal is to build a rental property so that I can get income and build long-term wealth with an asset, that is my goal or my definition of success. But the scope will be, what size house is it? How many bedrooms? How many baths? What kind of flooring? What kind of countertops? 2-story or 1-story? Big lot or small lot? What city is it going to be in? Will it be in a neighborhood? See, that is where we define scope. So we start to get into the granular detail of what success looks like. And in defining scope, we're also defining all the tasks that have to be done in order to reach success. So if I'm building that house, I've got to dig footers in the ground. I have to put a foundation. I have to build the frame or structure of the house. I've got to put plumbing, electrical, HVAC in the house. We have to put insulation and drywall, cabinets, flooring, paint, trim, fixtures. All those things are the details of the success that I'm after. So we want to clarify all those details in all the individual tasks that have to be done, right? So maybe you're starting a new business, and with your wife or your spouse, or you have a team and you're thinking, we want a project. Well, what are all the steps? So we know success is this new business making money, but the scope might be, well, we're going to need a logo, and then we're going to need a website. And on that website, we're going to need pictures and copy. We're going to need an accounting software. All the things that you need, right, to create that fully functioning business is the scope. Okay. Now you can see you can't start clarifying the scope until you have success defined. All right. So success informs scope. Now scope informs the next step, which is sequence. So when you're doing a project, when you're doing work, when you're working as a team, things have to be done in a certain order to get to a successful result. You do, especially in the building world, if I do things out of order, I won't get this end result. I can't start putting the trim on the walls before the drywall's in, right? I can't put the drywall in before the insulation has been put in, okay? So there's a sequence that things have to be done so I can get to that end result successfully. But I can't put a sequence in place unless I understand the scope and everything that it has to be done to get to success. You see, we're building on each other. I have a goal, and then I have every task and everything that goes into achieving that goal. And then I need to put them in effective order so that I do them correctly and nothing is done out of order. I don't want to have to redo things later. Okay. 4th step is then I create a schedule. So you have to put a schedule with expectations on when things will be done, or your project will never move forward successfully. Oftentimes we start projects and we have no sense of urgency, and something that we could get done in 3 weeks might take us 3 months because we didn't have a sense of urgency. We didn't put things on a schedule. So you take that sequence and you put them on a schedule. So that schedule creates expectation and a plan for when you can expect things to be done. Understand that schedule is a noun and it's a verb. So the schedule is a noun, meaning it's a plan, when things will be done, in what order, by what date. But it's a verb because scheduling is an active process of initiating all those processes, of getting the people on the team committed to certain dates. Okay, so when I'm starting to do that active process of scheduling, really what I'm doing is I'm assigning responsibilities. See, if you're leading a team, there's more than just you. And so the best thing that you can do is divide and conquer. there's certain parts of your project that you need to do with other people. But in this class, we really dug into the power of understanding your gift, knowing what it is, knowing what it isn't, and we talked about the third room of success, where we make room for the gifts of other people to join us. And so if you're making room for other people to join you, then there's certain people on your team who should do certain steps, certain people should do others. So step number 5 is we want to assign the responsibilities. We're going to take all that scope in that sequence on that schedule, and we're going to assign responsibilities. Who's volunteering to do what? Okay. You want to make sure that every line item on the scope has been assigned to somebody, so that that every piece of the project is going to be completed. If you don't assign it to somebody, there's a chance it could be forgotten about. Okay. So here's a hint. Here's a tip on how to really assign responsibilities effectively. Okay. Sometimes it's pretty obvious who should do what. In my world, the plumber should put the faucets on, right? The electrician should hook up the lighting. Okay. The carpenter should install the cabinets. Okay, that's really easy to understand. But in many projects, we're building businesses, we're building websites, we're creating companies. You need to delegate assign the responsibilities based on the gifts of the people on your team. You want to take time to understand the gifts of those people on your team. And then you want everybody signing up for the things that they're the best at, that they like to do. Because if someone's doing something they love to do, it won't feel like work. They'll get it done faster and they'll do a better job. Now, you as a leader, it's not your responsibility to do every piece of it. It's really your responsibility that every piece has been delegated to someone. And you want to bring out the best in your team to affirm their gift and encourage them to sign up for the things that they're good at. Okay. So we assign responsibilities. And when you do that, hopefully your schedule's been made and you're able to communicate with this person. All right, you're going to do this piece and it needs to be done by this date. Okay. So steps 1 through 5 is creating this master plan. No matter what project you're doing, if you'll work this all the way down, you'll have a structure that can prosper. You'll have a structure that can build something fast, okay? And once you've assigned the responsibilities, you're ready for step 6, which is to drive progress. Now, the better you do with steps 1 through 5, the easier the progress is going to come. Remember, fast is slow and slow is fast. If you try to go fast and you skip some of these steps, and you try to rush right into progress, likely there'll be things you forgot, there'll be things that get out of order, and you'll have to then untangle some knots and redo mistakes. But if you'll take the time to put the foundation under the project, when it's time to move, everybody is ready to go. Now, step 6, drive progress. This is your job as a leader. You've created your process. You've given them a structure to prosper and thrive. Now it's your job as a leader to drive that progress. So how are you doing that? You're monitoring the schedule. You're talking with the people who've agreed to their responsibilities. How's the logo coming? How's the website coming? Right? Do we have the business cards mocked up? So you're keeping track, and because ultimately the leader is the one responsible for the success of the project. Your team members are responsible for the things that they've signed up for, but you're responsible for it all coming together. And so you're monitoring the schedule and you're keeping track and tabs on the people you're working with to see how all that's connecting. And you want to begin to identify if something's running behind or coming ahead, that it all comes together in the sequence that you've laid out there. Some things are sequential and a person can't get started until another piece is done. And so in order to maintain a schedule, you need to be proactive in your communication. So you don't just set the schedule once and communicate it once. Part of driving progress is communicating that schedule all along the way. So if my framer puts the wood structure on top of the foundation, and so we'll send them an email when we're digging the footers and putting concrete in the ground. Hey, we're 2 weeks out from the framing. And then the foundation is set. Hey, Mr. Framer, we're a week away. And then the foundation is almost done. We're going to have an inspection. Hey, I think we're going to be ready for you Wednesday. See, we're doing that, following up, driving that progress with the schedule, giving people plenty of advance notice on when the project's going to be ready for them. And then part of that driving progress is, okay, we're ready for you to start Wednesday. How long do you think this should take? I really need this done by X date. So driving progress is communicating the expectation. And if I do this well, I'm going to incorporate all 1 through 6 in that communication. I want the framer to understand what success looks like for me. I want him to understand his scope really well. I want my framer to feel confident that he knows where he fits in the sequence, who's coming before him, who's going to come after, and who's going to interact with the things he does. And then I want him to feel empowered by the schedule, the date that he can start, the date that we're hoping things are going to be done. And if I'll do all those things, by the time this person comes to do their part, they're bought into your process. You have influence on them because you've served them well. You didn't spring it on them last minute. Okay. And then if you'll do that, things just begin to march down the field. And then you'll have project completion. But step 7 is where you review results. You take the time to assess, how did things go? You follow up with everybody who was involved with the project. Did you have what you need? Did you feel confident? Did I serve you well as a leader? Were you missing something? What was something that went wrong? What's something that we can do better next time? See, a leader needs to care about their performance to understand how they can serve people better the next time. Because as you can get better serving people, because that's what leadership is, it's really service. The better you get at serving people, the more successful your projects can be, the more successful you can be as a leader, the more people will be excited to join you and join the teams in the things that you're doing. So before this class is over, you need to pause or write these things down or download the notes. You can apply this framework anywhere. Anywhere you're a leader where there's people working together to accomplish something, you can apply this framework. It doesn't have to take 3 weeks to apply this framework. Once you know the steps, you can apply this framework within minutes. But it's important not to skip these steps. Trust me, if you're a leader and you can start to put this process and structure together for your team members, they will be empowered. They'll know what's expected of them. They'll be able to have success because you gave them an environment to succeed. And then when they do successful projects with you, they'll come back to do another one with you. And trust me, the more success you have with teams, people will start to take notice. Either your customers will buy more from you, your bosses will promote you, or the people will start to give you more influence in their life. So embrace the fact that people are your greatest asset, that your success is in their hands, and that their success is your responsibility. And use this process to empower your teams to accomplish great things. I pray that this will provide benefits to you, that you'll start applying it immediately. Hit me up on YouTube, social media. You got any other questions? We can work through this. And join us next week as we go to step 3, prepare the road. Thanks for joining us, YouTube. So folks on Zoom, I'm going to end the YouTube feed. And if anyone wants to stick around, we can talk about it. Give me 1 second.